on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota and Danny Abdeljabbar. How are you, Danny?
Chilling as per usual. Your backdrop looks a little different, though.
That is correct, because I recently moved to the old Brooklyn.
Oh, shit. Brooklyn.
Yeah, after 8 years of living in the Upper East Side in the same place, spending basically my entire bachelor's life in the same neighborhood.
Stoop kid finally decided to leave his stoop, huh?
Stoop kid finally decided to leave his stoop, and now I'm down in Brooklyn, which couldn't be more opposite.
Really?
Than the Upper East Side. Well, in some ways it's very similar. But what I immediately noticed. You've been living in Brooklyn for what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
What I immediately noticed was that there's a whole lot of liberals everywhere in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's where they all go because they can't afford to live in the Upper East Side, like you conserves.
Well, it's not too much more. It's not that much more expensive in the Upper East Side than where I live now. Actually, it's more expensive where I live in Park Slope. That's where I moved.
Well, that was your choice.
I mean, but it is basically liberal paradise. It's just like 40-year-old
Bernie Bros.
Bernie Bros all congregated to one neighborhood in New York, and I'm coming from a place where it's either really, really elderly people or 20-year-olds
Yeah.
or 25-year-olds. It's like a mix of those two demographics. But it is, a lot of BLM posters everywhere. A lot of
Little
black
culture shock for you.
a lot of Black Trans Lives Matter,
Mm-hmm.
or if I'm Black Trans Lives, Black Trans Lives Matter posters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of coffee shops. There's a coffee shop per.
That's actually a huge benefit. Yeah.
Every other store is a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm. We have great coffee shops here.
There were people who were so. One of my first encounters with somebody after moving here, there was a group of women who were sitting on the sidewalk eating Chinese food, and they were not homeless.
Well, I mean, there's a reason for that. They can't eat the Chinese food inside the store.
So you sit on the sidewalk?
Yeah, dude.
That's disgusting.
So what you're gonna notice is a lot of. I don't know if they're doing this in Manhattan because I haven't been in Manhattan in months.
There's no one in Manhattan who's sitting on the sidewalk.
Well, I don't know about sitting on the sidewalk. What I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of restaurants that are opening up in Brooklyn now. Within the coronavirus pandemic guidelines, which is that you have to maintain social distancing, and an easy way to do that is just to have outdoor seating. And the city has been very, very nice about allowing permits for more outdoor seating for, businesses that didn't have outdoor seating before. They're taking up parking spots and shit, and building these dope outdoor seating things where they can actually put tables and chairs a little bit farther away. But I think what you're going to start noticing in Brooklyn is that, it's the weather's nice. People are antsy to go outside, just like everywhere else in the damn country. And, they're going to go to their favorite Chinese food spot. And if that Chinese food spot doesn't have an outdoor seating option, they're just going to sit on the floor. For a month, at the last place that I was living at, the street, the police blocked this one-way street off. It's a very short street. And there's only there's a couple of bars and stuff like that, and it was and restaurants, and that was it. And they just blocked the street off, and this was before they put all the tables and chairs outside. And people would just go to the bar, or order drinks to go, and just kind of sit down outside, in the middle of the street and drink them. It's kind of weird because I don't think you're allowed. To my knowledge, you're still not supposed to drink in public in New York City. I think that's still not allowed, but people are definitely doing it, and the cops definitely don't give a fuck. And so this weird culture of outdoor
That's what happens
eating and
when
drinking.
You defund the police.
Huh? When you defund the police?
Defund the police.
No. That's what happens when there's a coronavirus and the police don't want to come near you for stupid reasons. They all just became extremely libertarian. They were like, whatever, they're not hurting anybody. what do they call it? The non-aggression principle, or the
non-aggression principle.
yeah. So like the cops just like kind of adopted that stance for like all crime in New York City. If you're not hurting anybody, whatever. I don't want the coronavirus.
Hey, even if you are hurting someone,
Well, yeah.
we'll come afterwards.
Yeah. We'll give it a couple minutes, and then hopefully you guys figure it out.
We'll give it a couple days, and
Yeah.
then we'll show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been busy over the past week just moving shit, and moving does suck a lot.
Yeah,
So
I hated it. It sucks.
It's terrible. So I personally haven't had that much time to like sit down and think about a topic to talk about for the show.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna wing it.
Yep.
We're going to just talk about some essentially random things that we found on the news and found circulating the web, and just kind of build upon there. And this is going to be one of the first episodes in a long time where I grabbed a beer.
Cool.
I grabbed a beer.
What are you drinking today?
A Brooklyn Lager.
Oh, that's appropriate.
When I just got these, didn't even put two and two together.
No?
I was just like,
it's fate.
when's the last time? Have you ever been drunk on this podcast?
I want to say no, but I do recall having a few beers and being slightly tipsy. I don't think I've ever been drunk. That's never been a thing. I don't think so.
I've been shit-faced a couple of times on this show.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't noticed, so.
I'm good at holding it. I can be shit-faced and you won't. No one will know. People probably realize that I was slurring words a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But you do that all the time anyway, so it's...
yeah, exactly. I always slur words, so it's not a big... You can't really tell my sober voice against my my drunk voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we pulled up some different topics, so we're going to try to just build a show from here. I'm sorry for any type of reverb that you hear in my voice right now, because I haven't had time to set up the foam stuff to absorb sound waves and all that acoustic stuff in this room. But where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, first positive point is that, we're probably not going to hear any sirens today.
Yeah, no more sirens.
Which is going to be a good thing. So, RIP to the sirens.
Yeah, RIP sirens.
Only took us 155 episodes to figure it out.
Yeah, it took us 155 episodes just to figure out how to fix it, and that was the move. So the first thing I want to talk about is something I found pretty interesting that recently came up, or it's been kind of relevant over the past week or so, and it stemmed from I'll just pull back. So the military has been recruiting on Twitch and Twitter, and they've been targeting gamers. And this has been something that's been going on for a long time. This has been going on since 2000, at the very least since 2002, late 90s, early 2000s. The U.S. military has witnessed that there's definitely a recruiting market in gaming, because a lot of kids are playing first-person shooters and stuff like that. So it's a good way to supplement that with some real-life Army action. Mm-hmm. So apparently, AOC, she had an amendment in place, and it was blocked. And it was an amendment to the Defense Appropriation Bill for 2021 that would have barred the U.S. military from recruiting on video game streaming sites like Amazon's Twitch, which
seems pretty reasonable, right?
It actually does. I don't agree with AOC on basically anything, but I honestly think this is a reasonable point. And her justification was that war is not a game, and this amendment is specifically to block recruitment practices and funding for recruitment practices on platforms such as Twitch.tv, which are live streaming platforms which are largely populated by children well under the age of military recruitment roles.
Right.
So that's her direct quote. And honestly, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Now, the reason for this amendment was that apparently the Army was using a Fox giveaway to redirect viewers to a recruitment form. So they were saying they're giving away, I think it was like an Xbox or something like that, where it would redirect
sign up for the Army, get an Xbox
to a recruitment page.
Oh man!
And then when Twitch found this out, they forced the Army to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing happened where
wait, time out. Before you continue with that, you just said they forced the Army to stop.
Yeah,
that's like a sentence you don't hear very often.
Yeah, the Twitch it violated their guidelines, so Twitch forced the Army esports page to stop doing that.
That's hilarious.
I mean, Twitch is a huge.
Yeah, but it's also the Army. It's kind of
it.
funny, you know. Like somebody just pushed around the Army and told them what to do. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, another thing that happened was that a viewer was banned from the Army and Navy Twitch channels because he was asking about U.S. war crimes.
Huh.
So I've honestly never been on Twitch before in my life until I looked at this story. I don't know. Do you Twitch at all?
I've done Twitch like a handful of times. I think I've tried it with like my buddies. CR, I see you're on here, so I think we've tried it together, right? To like watch each other play games and stuff like that. But honestly, it never caught on to me. Like I do enjoy watching other people play video games, but like live, not like over the internet. Like I could never, it's just not something I'm interested in.
Well, apparently there's a big market out there where people make millions of dollars playing video games, and people are watching them play video games for hours. Who would have ever thought that would have been a market? The Army and Navy have taken advantage of it by putting recruiters on these Twitch channels, mm-hmm. where it will be like a younger guy. It wouldn't be the traditional Army recruiter that you would.
Right, it'd be like some random like private, second class or some shit.
It'll be like a 20-something, 30-something-year-old, and they'll have like an Army thing in their background, and they'll casually be playing video games, and within that, they would talk about how awesome it is to be part of the Army.
That's why I like the Army, because it allows me.
I like the Army. Basically, it's like real life Call of Duty when you're in the Army. It's like real life Halo, but it's like cooler guns when you're in the what I do.
I can't tell you what I do because then I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, I can't tell you, but you can definitely join. Just go to this URL, and you'll get called every single day. So Republicans, they opposed the measure, while Democrats, they were pretty much split.
But why?
And, that's like pretty typical when it comes to
I just don't understand
revolving the military. Usually, it's half the Democrats will vote for it. Mm-hmm. If it's proposed by Democrats, then
I was just going to say that.
It'll be a split. If it's
is it because it's AOC?
Yeah, it's because of AOC. So the more left progressive wing of the Democratic Party voted for it, and then the establishment Democrats voted with the Republicans, and then the Republicans will vote against anything from AOC. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just politics as usual, but it was put in place, and what happened is that so it was these recent controversies that sparked these issues, and I can't believe they gave a Fox giveaway. But if you pull this back, there are a lot of weird things with this like esports Twitter page, this Army esports Twitter page, mm-hmm. and I pulled up some twits, some twats, some twatters. So I pulled this one up, this one tweet up, and they're all like appealing to young people. Like they'll be anime. They'll be tweeting out stuff about anime. Mm-hmm. or about Pokemon.
Yep, I see the Snorlax one, Street Fighter. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I keep talking about it. I'm gonna see if I can't pull these up on the screen.
There's
Hopefully, I don't break
Pokemon
anything.
Snap.
Pokemon Snap. Oh Jesus, yeah, you're right.
Basically everything. It's like Chin Pokemon from South Park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Anime.
So they're speaking the lingo, the basement dweller lingo.
Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can't like screen share this because I think this is worth it for anyone that's watching. And if you're listening at home, just like Google it. Look for the U.S. Army Esports page. It's at U.S. Army Esports on Twitter. Because like this whole feed is basically just like, it kind of feels like it's trying too hard. What do you think? Trying too hard to be like young, like, you know, and cool and hip.
It's like an adult trying to get on a trendy new subculture.
You know what this reminds me of?
I like metal, like something like that.
You know what this reminds me of? Have
like
you seen
when a 70-year-old person's like, I love hip hop, I love Nas, you know?
I love rap and R&B, rhythm
it's
and
so
blues.
poetic.
Yeah. No, you know what this reminds me of? Have you watched on Netflix the show Space Force with Steve Carell?
No.
I highly recommend it. It's fucking hilarious, right? But basically, it's just a show premised on it's like The Office, but you know, it's Space Force, right? And Steve Carell is like the commander of Space Force, and they get into all these crazy ass antics. And one of the characters on the show is his name on the show is Fuck Tony, right? He's supposed to be like a social media influencer that they hired to be like their social media guy for Space Force. And he's like a total like he's like a parody of Fuck Jerry, and he's also like terrible. Okay, fair. Space Force is nothing like The Office, but it's like awkward humor like The Office, I guess. Anyway, so this reminds me of like that in the sense that it seems like the U.S. Army like hired some young social media influencer to just run their esports page and just post a bunch of random shit. This is actually taking me a little bit too long to figure out how to do through this. I really should figure this out ahead of time, but oh well.
People can just look it up. It's just go to the U.S. Army Esports Twitter page, but basically it's like version talk, you know. And I asked the question, what is the appeal to trying to recruit basement dwellers who watch Twitch all day? Is that just so much of the demographic, the younger demographic? Because these are obviously targeted to like, you know, younger teenagers in their mid-teens. I
mean, I guess video games are pretty universal now. You know, it's not just like a bunch of nerds playing it. You know, like jocks play it. You know, and I'm guessing that, you know, if they want to go after some like athletic people, the likelihood is that they're probably playing Call of Duty. Like almost everybody plays it, you know. So I don't know.
Have you ever remember the game America's Army? It came out in the early 2000s.
I do remember the game. I never played it though. I'm interested.
So it was the first video game intended to be a recruitment tool for the Army, and it cost a lot of money to develop. I remember looking at it. It was supposed to cost around $7 million, but it ended up costing over $30 million over a 10-year period.
That is hilarious.
It was like known
typical
as
government.
Yeah, well, it's the government making the game. Of course, it's going to be more expensive, and it's not like they're selling it either. It was a free game. It was the sole purpose of this game was to give the authentic experience in the Army where you could join up with your friends and kill some.
I mean, I actually heard some pretty good things about it, that like it's very realistic to like real life, or at least as realistic as you can get, in the sense that like if you get shot once or twice, like you're gonna like be useless, and then if you get shot 3 times, like you're definitely dead. So it's not like in Call of Duty where you can get, you know, pumped full of lead for a full clip, and then, you know, the guy comes and smacks you in the face with a rifle, and then you're dead, which is total bullshit. I hate when that happens. But yeah, I mean, there's some good things about it, or at least I've heard, but it is super weird.
So do you play first-person shooters?
I do. Well, at least I used to. I haven't played a lot of them in a while, but love Call of Duty, love Battlefield, um, love Halo. I heard the new Halo's coming out soon, so I'm pretty pumped about that. It's holiday this year. Um, Played a little bit of Fortnite. Played a little bit of PUBG. I preferred PUBG over Fortnite because it's less cartoony and I don't like the building. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely play shooters. They're fun. They're a lot of fun. So I can totally see why the Army would want to, get into that market, break into that market. It's just weird,
What's the most realistic shooter out there? I don't really play shooting games, so
I'm gonna get torn up on the internet. I prefer Battlefield because you have to. There's like bullet drop in that, So in the sense, when it's far, if you're gonna shoot somebody from really far away, which the maps in Battlefield are typically really big, and you look down the scope, you actually have to aim kind of higher. And sometimes there's wind resistance, so like if it's very windy, it might push the bullet to a certain direction. I just feel like it's the gunplay is a little bit more realistic. I always felt like Call of Duty, like when you're shooting, it just shoots way too straight, like unreasonably straight, like laser beams or some shit, But yeah, that's just my opinion. I think
you can also like duck down and behind a box, and your health is magically restored.
Yeah, I mean all these games are a little
authentic
weird.
World War II experience. Just hide behind a barrel, and you're healed. Storming the beaches of Normandy. If you get shot, just duck down and hide underneath a comrade's body, and you'll be healed.
I mean, the game would be super fucking boring if like you waited around for 5 minutes for the game to start, and then you get shot once or twice, and then you're basically useless for the rest of the game, and you don't get to respawn, and you don't get to like heal back up. Like nobody would be interested in that.
When I was younger, I played a game called Rambo 6.
Rainbow Six or Rambo Six?
Oh, it was Rainbow Six.
Rainbow.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Rainbow,
Tom
Rainbow
Clancy.
6.
Yeah, Tom Clancy.
Yeah, it was a
game.
Tom Clancy game, and it was very realistic. It was like that, where if you got shot, you basically had to start over. And I think that a lot of these games have advisors from the military, obviously,
Sure.
who are telling them what guns look like, and what's the
What does this gun look like?
what does this gun look like, or how shots fired in actual.
Yeah, I mean they do a lot of
formations and
physics
things like that.
The sound
There's a
design is
lot
great.
of advisors, but I mean those games in itself, they're essentially recruiting mechanisms for the military.
Right. I mean, it's pretty troubling. I mean, they're also kind of recruiting elements for the police. I think this came up during the defund the police kind of conversation, but the police recruiting videos have like basically turned into Call of Duty, Call of Duty trailers, kind of showing SWAT teams and shit like that, and like the whole allure behind first person shooters and how accessible they are to a lot of people and how addictive they are. It does help recruit for these very dangerous and very serious roles, namely of course the US Army and by extension local police forces.
Well, I guess my question is that, so hardcore gamers, I'm not talking about the average person. I like to play video games once in a while, and I'm a big Zelda fan, and I've played more video games since quarantine started, but I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore gamer. Like I don't play games more than at the most maybe a few hours a week.
Right.
There are people who play video games 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. It's their hobby outside of their career or schooling.
And for some people, it's their career.
For some people who, the chosen few, it's their career who are on Twitch. I think a lot of these gamers, like these younger gamers, the reason why they get into it is because I think a lot of it has to do is because they're very fatalistic. It's like there's a big problem with like youth who don't think that they're in control of their destiny, and they don't see the effort in going to school or starting a career. They don't see the payback. And video games is something that you get immediate progression. You're able to progress, and if you're playing an RPG, your character levels up. Or if you are playing a first-person shooter,
You can level up your gun. You get the new.
yeah, you get better guns, and you improve your skills, and
Right.
you win more matches, and the ratio of
KD spread.
kills, it starts to change. And I think for a lot of for a younger generation, which doesn't see a payback in hard work in a lot of circumstances, they use that as an escape because they're able to see progression for their effort. And I think that's why a lot of younger people are attracted to video games. And I include millennials and the generation below that, whatever, Gen Z, right?
Y, Z, something like, I don't know, who knows.
Gen Z. So I think they're attracted to that, and I think that is probably a good recruiting ground for the military, because if you are, it's something that gives you immediate dignity. If you're from a place that's disadvantaged, or if you don't have a set career, it's like a way to have, to earn a okay wage and still have a profession that is treated with respect across the country. So it's a good strategy when you think about it to kind of target that demographic.
I mean, undeniably smart strategy to go after. It's just like it's undeniable that it's a good strategy because so many people do play it. And I disagree slightly with your characterization on
I'm not saying all, but I think a large portion of people who are hardcore gamers, who are spending a lot of times in front of a gaming system, are.
I mean, I could see that being true for some people.
They're addicted to it because of the progression.
Yeah, I could see that being true for some people, for sure. I think the reason why a lot of people are so addicted to video games is because it's wired, like it's created in such a way that is just very tickling to the human mind, right? So it does grab our attention in a way that no other medium does. It blends elements of like storytelling that we would get from, like, say, reading a book or watching a movie, with elements of sports that we would get by playing sports, and it blends it together with kind of the convenience of just sitting on the couch, which is, we already know sitting and watching TV is very addicting, and a lot of people would do that anyway, so like it blends a lot of things together, and it creates a whole lot of dopamine, in our brains, the pleasure chemicals, and it's super accessible, and it's no longer stigmatized as like this weird like nerd shit. Like lots of people play video games now, so with that being said, I think it is smart, to your point, for the U.S. Army and military to recruit on those platforms, because you're going to get the younger people, and that's a good point. CR brings up an interesting one. So he says people who watch video game streamers aren't even necessarily hardcore gamers. Lots of younger people watch people streaming just for social interaction in a way, and for entertainment. And actually, I agree with that as well. Even cash gamers. One of my little younger sisters, she definitely watches a lot of like video game streams and Twitch and things like that. And sometimes for them, it's just like something to do, it's social interaction, keeping in mind that this younger generation, a lot of their social interaction happens on social media platforms rather than in like IRL, in real life. But I still find it fucking weird and creepy, despite how wide of a demographic that you can get. I find it weird and creepy that they're using these platforms as a way to get to people, because ultimately what the end result of this is that they're going to recruit more people that they're going to throw into the meat grinder of war. Like this isn't like a desk job. Like the implications are pretty serious.
So so military recruiters using Twitch and Twitter to recruit kids makes pedophiles the second most dangerous people for kids to be talking to on the internet.
I mean, I guess you're way more likely to die in war than you are to be killed by a pedophile, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that the stakes are way too high. It's weird.
it's just very creepy because there's just like a genuine level of this just kind of weird cultism behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Weird
the fact that there's
fetishization.
yeah,
There's
there's like a younger guy who's in his 20s and 30s who's meant there to appeal to kids in their, whatever.
It's weird.
And it's meant to. Do you know how this propaganda is supposed to propagandize kids when they're 12, 13 years old, when they're growing up? When I was younger, I used to love playing, like when I was just, 7 or 8 years old. My friends and I used to love pretending that we were fucking army badasses
same.
in the middle of the jungle, just shooting people. Like we used to love that shit. It was such a fun game, and we all loved like the war movies when we were younger. I mean, they still are really entertaining.
Yep. But it's just it was just fantasy, right? And it was fine as just fantasy, but it's weird that they're actively using it as a method for recruitment.
And this has been going on for a while. It's funny because apparently the Navy, they opted to redirect funds that they were going to use for a Super Bowl ad to their esports presence. So they see that this I think they really do see this avenue as a better recruitment tool, because back in 2008 there was actually, I don't want to say a crisis, but there was maybe a minor crisis that was happening with recruitment in the military. In 2018, the Army didn't hit their recruitment goals, so the following year they had to lower the number of soldiers that they would enlist. So I think that's when they pivoted towards this strategy. When I was younger, I remember talking to a Marine recruiter when I was in high school.
You spoke to one of them? I avoided them all.
Yeah, I spoke.
I didn't want to talk to any of them.
I spoke to one of them, and then we had a conversation and all of that, and it was it was whatever. And I got home, and I ended up getting called every single day from this guy, and I was creeped out. I was very creeped out. I was like, hey, you want to come by and learn about what the Marine Corps has to offer, like every single day. And I was actually interested when I was in high school, but I think my desire to go to college and party and be a jackass definitely
outweighed your desire to go to war.
Outweighed my desire to go to the Middle East. But it was very creepy. I remember finding it very off-putting that I was called every single day for like a week period, and my mom was like, "What is this guy doing? Like, don't pick up the phone." And my mom is like very, very conservative, like support our troops type of person.
Right.
So it's interesting. Do you have anything you want to stick with the video games, or do you want to transition?
Let's transition. Let's talk about something else.
All right. So, this COVID-19 stimulus package.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down. Let's talk about that.
So, the Senate Republicans revealed their $1 trillion coronavirus stimulus package, and hidden inside this package was a request for new defense spending. $8 billion were just strictly for weapon systems.
Wow.
And the bill requests millions in new spending for things like missile defense systems and F-35s.
Wait, but you got to say the top line number, though. It's $29.4 billion in requests for defense spending. That's the top line number. That's a lot of fucking money.
$29.4 billion in this request, just hidden away, just hidden away. You could make a bill that's like, I'm starting a fundraiser to get Jarrett from Subway out of jail, and it would just go completely
to the defense spending.
unlooked. Like you could just put something like, yeah, we want to go to, it's so funny. We did the episode on Iran-Contra where Congress, where the CIA covertly was arming the Contra rebels.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Why not just stick the funds in a bill?
Seriously. In a coronavirus bill. And a stimulus package to help
put it in a stimulus
people.
package. No one's going to read this 400-page bill. It was a nightmare. When I read the last one, it honestly was the most terrible. Like, I hated reading that thing. But it was just, no one reads these things.
It's also not written for you to read. It's literally not written for you to read.
It's written for
lawyers to argue about. You know,
Yeah.
it's literally just written for lawyers to argue about. And what's funny about this is that wouldn't it be hilarious if part of this money that they were asking for was so that the military can invest in their esports, their esports recruiting pages. That's not actually a thing, but
I mean, you don't need
nuts.
that much money to invest into that esports page compared to what you would need to invest in a Lockheed Martin fucking fighter jet.
No, I know. So, okay, let's talk about some of the things that are like what they wanted to spend the money on. So, before we do though, some background here. We're talking about a bill that is coming literally at the last fucking minute because right now, tomorrow we're filming this on Thursday the 30th. So on the 31st of July, tomorrow, all of the extended unemployment benefits expire, right? And that's the $600 that, is very controversial among many people, right? There are people on both sides arguing for and against it. But the point, though, is that it's ending. And part of this is supposed to be, talking about what do we do with the people that are unemployed. I think we're at like 14%, 14.7% or something like that unemployment rate right now. What are we going to do? Are we going to give out another round of stimulus checks? Are we going to give out more PPP loans? Like, what's the deal? Like, everybody's, got their hands, in shrug mode and thinking like, what are we doing? And even the markets are starting to get really rocky right now because they don't know, like, how is this going to happen? So the Democrats put forward a bill a while ago, and it was a $3 trillion bill, and it proposed putting a whole lot of money directly into people's pockets, and also there was a lot of spending for things like schools and healthcare services and shit like that. But it was legitimately $3 trillion, and that made Republicans, I think, very uncomfortable. So, Mitch McConnell and the rest of the Republicans decided that they wanted to make their own version of the bill, and they wanted to keep it at a cool $1 trillion. And this brings us full circle to here. It's like, okay, you want to be conservative because that's what you are, and you want to keep that number as low as possible, even though $1 trillion is still a crazy amount of money. But it's totally cool in a stimulus package that's intended to help out the economy and the people who are hurting because of coronavirus. It's cool to just throw in a cool $29.4 billion for defense spending.
But Danny, these people need jobs. The defense industry needs jobs.
The defense industry is a job creator. They're job creators.
It's the backbone. It's the backbone of our economy. These people need jobs. It's not just the engineers and the consultants and all the bigwigs. Who's going to make the screws? Who's going to make the screws of that jet?
Right.
Your local mom and pop steel shop is going to be making
the F-35 employs people in 47 states of this country. Okay.
So you're going to call Bubba's machine shop working, who is employed because of the steel plant, the local steel plant's
contract
with Lockheed Martin, then
to make bolts.
they're gonna lose their job and go and get addicted to opiates. Like, that's what's gonna happen.
And we don't want them to lose their job because we're definitely not going to give them any unemployment insurance.
Are gonna go out of
I mean, look,
everything
it's
will fall.
Just fucking weird, dude. It's just weird. Like, I think we don't always agree on like the stimulus, right? We don't always agree on coronavirus, but the closest I got, you and I have gotten to agreeing on any kind of stimulus is like just putting money in people's pockets, and this is not putting money in people's pockets.
Well, you and I both agree. We definitely come from different backgrounds, yeah. But you and I both agree that the stimulus money shouldn't be going out to these large
random
conglomerates,
yeah,
at all.
No.
Like, it is unbelievable when this happens, and especially not to defense contractors. They're making trillions of dollars.
Right.
And so many companies, and so there were 5,000 cases of SBA fraud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that because that's interesting. I didn't look into that. Tell me more about
So,
that.
so there were over 5,000 cases of SBA fraud, and essentially they were from the PPP loans, and the PPP loans were um, the
Paycheck Protection Program or
yeah,
whatever
it's
whatever it's
essentially
called.
they were loans given to employers for keeping their staff on hand,
Right.
and the whole purpose
During the coronavirus, that is. Right.
was to not have to lay people off,
Right.
and they were administered from mostly community banks, and these banks were really just giving them to not not small businesses. The Small Business Administration, their loans, they are essentially loans that are matched and guaranteed by the government, kind of like how student loans are.
Right.
And what happens is that a bank will put up part of the loan, and then the government will put part of the loan up, and then the borrower will put about 10%. So the government and the bank will split it, and then the borrower will put up about 10%, and the loan is guaranteed. So to qualify for an SBA loan under normal circumstances, because these aren't huge loans, most of these loans are less than $1 million, and these really large companies started taking advantage of these loans that shouldn't even be qualified for the SBA program.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone knew this was going to happen. Everyone knew that there was going to be a tremendous amount of fraud
Right.
in this. That companies that did not even were not even affected by, or they weren't even exposed to the COVID-19
Right.
factors that led to massive layoffs were taking these loans.
Right. We also talked about a couple of companies who were exhibiting signs of just poor management before coronavirus, and then now suddenly we're taking advantage of these loans
Yeah.
to like
Right.
prop up their failing businesses.
There's a lot of companies that were had really really poor IPOs, and they were
Some of them got
committing
caught by
fraud,
like
acts of
the
fraud
FEC and stuff like that for fraud.
well before COVID-19 happened, where they were lying about their
Profits.
their financial performance and their profits to their investors to prop up their stock prices. And these are the type of companies that were getting these paycheck protection programs, and under the guise of, hey, we need to keep on, we don't want anyone to be laid off, it kind of gives you this moral authority,
moral cover, yeah.
This moral coverage to bail out basically anyone. And I understand this is obviously, there's nothing you can do about it. Like most businesses are suffering right now.
Right.
There are some industries that are doing well, but most industries by and large are feeling the effects, because even if their products and services are things that are not affected by things such as social distancing or the influx of work from home and
Right.
just the lack of liquidity, they are still
Affected by demand, which
they're
is
affected by their demand.
directly correlated with employment, and economic growth in the country. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people did get PPP loans legitimately and needed them legitimately, and like the idea was like good enough. But I think where we intersected so much was like, if we're going to give out money, we might as well just put it in the pockets of people and let them spend it however they see fit. And where I get really frustrated about just talking, and learning about this new bill is that there wasn't a second version of this bill, and it's clear like this isn't getting any better. It's actually in many states it's getting worse, and a lot of people are just like looking to the government right now. Whether they should or not is up for debate, but like a lot of people are legitimately looking to the government for like what's the next step, because people can't return to work, don't have a job to go back to. Businesses are closed. I mean, the economy shrank 30%. 30% in the last quarter, you know? So if that's any indication of the impact that this virus has had, you know, for better or for worse on how we've handled it, you know, the government chose to close the businesses down, and now they have to make the choices to get them back open or to, you know, prop them back up again with money, frankly. And they've been dragging their feet on it, and they're waiting until the very last fucking minute, and then they decide to stick some stupid shit in there like this, you know, for defense spending, which is just like totally off topic.
Whenever there's a chance to put money for weapon systems in a bill, they're gonna take it. Like,
it's just so off topic.
That Congress is gonna, because the lobbyists are the ones who are writing these bills anyway.
Yeah.
You know that. And you know what's interesting about those SBA loans? So I have a friend who was really affected by the lockdowns because he's in IT. So he does, you know, he sets people's
Computers
shit up, you know, computer systems up,
right.
Network systems. And he was really affected because he can't go into physical office. He can't go to offices. He had the opportunity to take an SBA loan to one of these PPP loans because he has a couple of employees, and he opted not to. He's like, no, I'm not taking these employees. We're not gonna do any jobs. I'm just gonna sit down and roll with it. And now he's doing a lot better because now in New York he's able to. A lot of his clients are banks, so he's doing a lot better now because at the very least, you know, banks there's some level of opening, and he didn't opt to take the loans, which put him in a better position right now. So I think a lot of business owners who didn't take the SBA loans are actually kind of seeing a payoff. They're not seeing a payoff, but
they dodged a bullet. They dodged a small bullet. Yeah,
they dodged a small bullet by doing that. Because you don't know how, like a lot of these restaurants who took them, I think they're going to get screwed in at the end because restaurant margins are really small without a pandemic going on, and now they can only operate with what 30 to 50% if we're being generous
capacity.
with that capacity. Even in New York City where you can dine on the street, how many people? Like what is that? What's the percent of the capacity that they have in their little real estate of sidewalk or street that they have? Maybe they can sit like maybe 30 to 40 people in a restaurant that was supposed to fit 80 people.
Right. I mean, realistically, again, you know, in New York, we have the advantage of like, you know, we have a very strong delivery culture. So you can order and get delivery from almost any restaurant in New York City or, you know, any of the boroughs. So, but that still, I don't think will make up for what you're talking about, right? Like we're not going to get to the margins that they need to be at, especially if they need to pay back some of these loans. But the point though is that it doesn't matter about the capacity either, because if the demand isn't there, like we shouldn't even be thinking about how much capacity we can put in there. If there's no demand by consumers,
well, the demand is there by consumers, because if you pass one of these places, I think it is. If you pass these restaurants, a lot of them are packed.
I mean, I think we live in a very interesting area of the world right now, you know, because we underwent the epicenter of the epicenter and we dealt with it the best that we could, and now it's starting to slow down and it's getting nice out and things are starting to open back up, and we're just naturally a very densely populated, you know, community. So the few businesses that are open, that are allowing people to come, you're going to see a lot of people there. It's going to look very packed, but you know, keep in mind, I can guarantee you that it's not nearly as packed as it can be, and the economic activity is not nearly as high as it is. And just going back to the numbers from last quarter, for our economic growth, we actually contracted by 30%, right? So like thinking outside of New York City, right? The country has contracted by 30% of economic activity. And a lot of the reason for this is because a lot of people lost their jobs. or because a lot of people are operating on smaller revenues because of lockdowns and closings, right? So if we're talking about the gym owners that can't open their gyms, like they don't have income right now to just go out and dine in a restaurant. We're talking about like people in the arts, and certain service industries that can't work right now, they don't have an income to go out and
people in the arts
can't
afford to go to a restaurant anyway.
Touche. But you know what I'm saying, man. There's like tons of different people in the travel industry, like I was reading this one article about how in the travel industry they have like almost a 30% unemployment rate, and it's going to stay that way for a lot of those people because the jobs weren't just furloughed, right? It's not like just temporarily put on hold because there's no demand because of this, coronavirus thing. You just don't need that many people to run a hotel anymore. Like you don't need that many, room service people. You don't need that many bellhops. You don't need that many front desk people. You don't need that many maintenance people because there's literally no rooms being occupied. And those jobs just won't, like for a lot of these businesses that end up closing and shuttering, those jobs don't come back, right? So capacity aside and margins aside, if people don't have money to spur on the economic activity, none of what we're talking about matters.
And this is just shitting on the poor. This is shitting on the lower income more than anyone.
Absolutely.
Because it's a lot of people who have a medium income of over $70,000. Let's just pick a random number.
Yeah. And 75. Let's use that one.
If they work in an office environment with an internet where they're able to do their paperwork or communicate with their team online, then a lot of them are able to keep their employment. Maybe a lot of companies have downsized, but a lot of people are able to keep at least their means of living.
Even then, like there are businesses where it's like white collar like that, where they can work, they potentially could work remotely, but what they sell into, what their industry sells to, or how they generate their revenue is crippled. Like look at people at Yelp as an example. This company has been laying people off like the plague. Yelp, because nobody's buying their product right now because all of the restaurants and like places that would get listed on Yelp are closed. No one's buying their shit.
Well, maybe they're making a comeback. I don't know if they have some type of product line for new businesses that are
they're giving it away for free.
Lockdown.
They're giving it away for free. I happen to know this
for free.
I happen to know this on like inside information, like unnamed.
That's when a company's desperate. All right, so a company gives things for free, like a tech startup company. I mean, Yelp's not a tech startup, but in the same vein as like a tech company.
Yeah.
They give stuff for free for two reasons. One reason being is because they just got a shitload of money from some
investors, right?
Some investors. They're in like their Series
G,
Series G, and they're just some jackass dumped, $10 million in their company, and they're using it to just get as many. And then there's like demands from the board of directors on the company.
I want to see 100 million users.
We want to see 100 million users. That's not impossible. We have 6 salespeople.
Yeah.
We want to see growth month by month, and we'll feel confident if we have 6 million users by the end of the fiscal year. You do it, or we'll find a new CEO. And then the CEO is like, oh, fuck, it's so hard to be a CEO of a new startup company. Oh, well, what do we do to get more users? And then they end up giving away their product for free. They literally will start giving away, like, sign up for XYZ company, get your first 2 years for free.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a bait and switch, because what I know from Yelp, from my inside sources here, is that they basically set up a system whereby you can take advantage of some of their advertising platforms that would normally be charged for free for some short period of time, in the hopes, my assumption is in the hopes that after the coronavirus is over and they don't have to give you free shit anymore, that you'll be hooked on their advertising and will want to spend money with them. It's really a fucking Hail Mary play, to be honest. And it makes it
Yeah.
look like for their investors, like, okay, yeah, we didn't get any revenue this quarter, but look at how many new advertising users we've gotten, like how many people we got interested in the product for free. I think it's a little crazy.
Does it require to have like a credit card on file or something?
I'm
Because they're
certain. I'm certain. Yeah.
I'm sure that they're
Yeah.
hoping that these people just forget that
Yep.
they're signed up for this free Yelp service, and that they just let this thing proactively bill, and they're in some type of TSA that they have. They're like, oh, well,
If you don't,
there's no refunds.
right? And if you don't give us 30-day notice via certified mail, then we're going to charge your card.
It's definitely that shit.
I feel like we've worked for
other
companies
reason,
that did that shit.
Yeah, the other reason, obviously, when you give your product away for free is that you're throwing a Hail Mary and nothing else. You're in a global pandemic.
Yep.
That's the other reason.
And you just have to, yeah.
You just literally you have the capital to give that money away, or you have at least you have the ability to borrow enough to give that those services for free.
Yeah. But I mean, coming back around to this, like, again, we're talking about, these bills and these services, like giant numbers, like $3 trillion spent. So I think it's $3 trillion so far. And, the House proposed another $3 trillion and the Senate is proposing $1 trillion. It doesn't matter. We're talking about multi-trillion dollars that we're spending right now. And we're spending it in ways that just like has been proven to not work, right? The way that I see it is that we're putting the money in a trickle down economy style, which over many decades, trickle down economics just has been disproven over and over again. Why not try trickle up for a change?
You need to watch
right?
some of Ronald Reagan's The Great Communicators.
I mean, but we're in such a unique time right now where the government is literally giving away free money, right? Like trillions of dollars. Like forget it if you were a fiscal conservative. Like nobody's a fiscal conservative
trickle
anymore,
down economics is more so that I'm not saying that I'm subscribe to trickle down economics, but the theory is that if you tax people less, then the money will go down. It's not if you give money more. If you give people on the top more, then the money will trickle down.
But
it's
that they've been
tax people
for
less.
this stimulus package for the second round. It was very strongly proposed that we have a tax holiday, like an income tax holiday. So that's the route that they wanted to go, right? But right now what they're saying is let's protect the businesses, right? Let's give businesses more money, and hopefully they give their money to their employers, and hopefully they do the right thing and don't defraud us. And then because they'll keep jobs open, then the people will have money and then they can spend it. Which we've seen 5,000, cases of SBA fraud. We've also seen companies that have no fucking business, getting these loans, including like some crony capitalism, right? I've heard a lot of reports about, certain Trump entities, Trump LLC, not like the person, entities getting money, Trump businesses getting money for this, Mitch McConnell's wife's business getting money for this. We all know better. It's all lobbyists that are writing the shit, Like the cleanest, easiest way to do this is just put money in everyone's pockets and let them spend it. If you're going to give money anywhere, just put it in everyone's pockets, let them spend it how they see fit. The free market will sort itself out.
Bailouts are just the transfer. They're just financial crimes. I don't know how any way to see this than just a financial crime.
Right.
Like, all right, back to like the original, the original talking point is that the military spending was snuck into the bill.
Right.
We haven't even listed what the money was used for.
I forgot.
But they're all fucking airplanes.
Yeah.
So there's over $1 billion for the Boeing P-8A Poseidon aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
There's $720 million for the Lockheed Martin C-13J aircraft.
C-130.
C-130 aircraft.
Big one.
$686 million for the F-35A aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
The aircraft. The A is the one
that's the air fighter.
That's the one that that's the air fighter, right?
That's the version that's supposed to go to the space, not the Space Force, the Air Force.
The C is the one that the B is the one that goes to
the Marines.
That connects the Marines.
That's the jump jet one, and the C is the Navy one.
The Navy one. The C is the one that goes in aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
And then the B is the one that does like the hover thing.
Yep, jump jet. Yeah.
Okay. And then there is the $650 million for the Boeing A-10.
That's the Warthog.
And then
that's wing replacements for the Warthog.
And then $375 million for General Dynamics Stryker upgrades. And then $283 million for the Boeing AH-64 Apache helicopter.
Interesting.
Then let's see. Oh, the THAAD's getting money. $243 million and $76 million for THAAD related items, including anti-ballistic missile defense systems and $49 million for a sonar system for submarine activity. Sonobuoys, a tactical sonar system.
So that's what our Corona money. That's where our Corona money is going towards.
Right? Capitalism is when. This is why capitalism gets a bad name, and people and progressives, they call this capitalism when they're arguing against it. This isn't capitalism. This is crony capitalism.
Right.
This is perverted capitalism.
Right.
When state and business are combined, it is just crony capitalism. The state is enables business to influence them through things like lobbying and donations and positions of consulting positions.
Hey, businesses are people too, okay? Or at least the Supreme Court seems to believe so. And money is free speech.
Money is free speech.
That makes businesses the loudest people in the United States.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Can you hold this thing for a little bit? I just want to be back with 2 seconds.
Maybe I'll talk about the aliens while you're gone. All right, well, Henry's gone. Actually, you know what? Haunter here has been asking a question that I think Henry would have no idea what this is. So I actually do. I find this topic pretty interesting. So Haunter here is talking about a global network powering a simulated world, right? So I'm not certain if Haunter, if you are referring to the theory that we are existing in a simulation, or that we are currently running a simulation of another world. In either way, I find that fucking fascinating. I think personally that it's entirely possible that this is a simulation. This kind of goes back to my days in college when I was learning philosophy and the Cartesian principle of like an evil demon that is like making you believe that the reality that you see and hear and feel and touch is the one that you see. It's basically the Matrix, and I don't know. Chat is back. What do you think? Do you think it's a? Do you think it's?
What did you say about my mama? What did you say about?
We were talking. I was talking to our crowd here. One of our viewers brought up an interesting thing that I nerd out about.
I know I have a small bladder.
I'm sure those Brooklyn lagers really cut right through you too.
Well, I'm also drinking a lot of water to stay hydrated through this show, since it's like 90 degrees in this room.
We got to get you a something, a quiet something.
I don't know how to cool the room up without causing an obnoxious
noise.
Buzzing sound in the
I think
background.
we can probably get you one of those Dyson fans that don't have a fan blade. It just like fucking uses like ions or I have no idea how those things work. But, you know, it's like a fucking hole. It looks like a fucking oval, and there's no fan, and it just somehow blows wind at you. You ever seen those before? No?
No.
All right. Well, I'll buy you one for your birthday. All right, let's talk about a different one. So this one might be interesting to talk about. Did you hear that yesterday tech companies were grilled by Congress in a congressional hearing?
So I'm not actually very familiar with this. I didn't hear this.
Yeah, this was. This one for me, I think, was pretty fucking fascinating, and I think we might be able to get an interesting chat about it. But top executives at Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook were scheduled to get grilled on antitrust and unfair competition issues, right? And when I say top executives, I mean the top executives. We're talking about Sundar Pichai from Google, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, Tim Cook, or as Trump calls him, Tim Apple from Apple, and I'm leaving one out, Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. Like literally the figurehead poster boys for all of these companies that probably represents like several tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars between them. It was fucking interesting. And also it was an epic waste of time. So that's my TLDR. I guess Congress has been doing these investigations against these companies for a long time now, and they finally figured out a time to get them all in the same congressional hearing so that they can basically call them out on their bullshit. And some of the things that they were looking at were, as an example, like Facebook, whether it was against antitrust laws to basically buy Instagram, right, which was a competing social media platform. Another one was they were grilling Jeff Bezos from Amazon to say, evidently they've been using sales data from people who sell on Amazon to figure out what products they themselves can create and make more money on, because they see all of the sales and all of the profit margins and all of that other stuff for literally everyone who sells anything on Amazon. You ever see those like Amazon Basics stuff? You know, you can get like fucking batteries and cables and like random shit, just like Amazon brand shit, you know?
Yeah.
Well, so basically what they do is what they're alleging, the Congress was alleging in this hearing, was that Amazon is taking the sales information from all of these companies that sell regular shit, like their own name brand shit, and figuring out what are the profit margins, like what can we make ourselves cheaper and make more money on, and set our prices in a way that would make the most sense. And then also use our filtering and our, like, you know, when you search for shit, this is what you're going to find first, to like, so that we make the money on it. So it's a little fucked up, you know. They have like a platform, and then they steal all the information, and then they, you know, compete against the people on their own platform. And then we're grilling Apple. This one hits home. They were grilling Apple pretty hard on their marketplace and their competition. So Apple takes a 30% cut of any in-app purchase on the Apple App Store. 30% cut. Giant, enormous, like, thing. And they don't allow you to even have an app on the App Store that even has any payment methods outside of it, right? So as an example, you know, if I make an app and I say it's a subscription service, well, that subscription service has to go, if I want it on the App Store, it has to go through Apple's payments. And if I say, okay, well, fine, then you can't sign up for the subscription service through Apple payments, but I still want the app on the App Store, and you have to manage that on the website. Well, you can't do that either. They just will deny it. And then they also have these clauses in Apple which says that they don't like copycat apps, right? So they'll deny an app that they think is just like if I make, you know, Finstagram, which looks exactly like Instagram and does the exact same thing, like they might actually block my app because they don't want that on the App Store. However, in the terms of agreement for like the developers that you sign, right, if you're a developer on Apple, it says that Apple can basically do whatever the fuck they want. So if they want to make a copycat app of your shit, they can. So they don't have to play by the same rules, and they can make money on it. So it's like kind of fucked up. And they were doing the same thing with Google, you know, whether or not they're using download data to figure out which apps can they copycat themselves and make a profit on, and also like their practices for, revenue sharing when you do purchases through the App Store. It was actually very interesting, but I want to point out why it was such a fucking waste of time, because I mean, in true political and congressional style,
all these antitrust things they're always just useless.
It was just because like they were making some good points, and there's some real shit that we should pay attention to and have the discussion about. But like these Congress people used it as a way to just basically talk political nonsense. Like Republicans, when they were grilling them, specifically Facebook, they took this as an opportunity to, bitch and moan about like, conservatives being, censored on social media. And then when the Democrats were talking to them, they were basically bitching and moaning about like fucking whether or not they were being socially, politically correct. Like
they were bitching about fake news and stuff like that.
Yeah, like fake news or like whether or not they were being politically correct.
Oh, God.
So like on both sides of the aisle when I'm watching this shit and when you read about it, it's just like some of their questions, were just
all
like, oh my God,
self-serving
shut the
questions
fuck
about their
up.
own party.
Yeah, it's just like I didn't want to hear this. I want to hear the like juicy shit that they've, like. Because like I forget who was actually the ranking member of this hearing. It was a dude, and he was saying at the end that they think that there's definitely antitrust laws being violated for all of these companies, and that some of them should be broken up, and that some of them need more investigation and shit. And like that's big fucking words. Like we're talking about the top 4 biggest companies, tech companies in the world, right? And the government is saying that maybe we should break them up, right? Like we're talking about Teddy Roosevelt style, like antitrust monopoly busting, right? Like this is big fucking news, but they spent half of the time just doing political bitching, It was just so annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it always comes to that. Whenever there's a hearing, both parties just try to get their talking points across,
right?
And of course, it's like. It couldn't have been more predictable of like what their gripes and concerns were. Mm-hmm. Like the Republicans are complaining about conservatives being censored on Facebook, and then vice versa, Democrats are complaining to Facebook about them not being politically correct. Yeah. It's so absurd.
Yeah. I mean, literally on those 2 points, like one Republican asked, do you commit to not censoring conservatives? And it's just like
to not censoring conservatives.
What
you should be? It should be. You commit to providing a platform that provides free speech to diversity of opinion to everyone.
Right. I think one of the Democrats was saying it was a woman. I forget her name too. She was like, yes or no question. Will you commit to hiring people of color in the top areas of your thing? And it's like, look, you could be on any side of that political conversation as you like, right? I think there's arguments to be made on both sides. However, like time and place, like we're here to talk about antitrust laws, not to do this like weird like political like.
We're not talking about affirmative action.
Yeah,
we're
like
about antitrust laws today.
It was so cringeworthy.
Save it for another time.
It was cringy. But I guess like for these people, this is like their one and only time to like get a quick pot shot into fucking Mark Zuckerberg, or like Jeff Bezos, So, whatever.
Did Mark Zuckerberg act
robotic?
Completely weird and awkward?
Yes, as per usual. Yeah, it was fucking weird.
That guy is the strangest man.
He is very strange, but who was even more strange at the end was Jeff Bezos.
Really?
It was super weird because like it was the live stream I was watching. I think it was directly from C-SPAN, and at the end, the ranking member, the guy who was like running the show in Congress, was talking about how some of these companies need to be broken up. Some of them are committing antitrust violations, blah blah blah, and they just whoever was operating the cameras, right, like switching the camera feeds, was just held on this one shot of Jeff Bezos as this guy is basically saying like, we're gonna break you up, and he just had this like weird awkward smile the whole time. Like it's like a little half smile, like trying to look nice, like he knew he was on camera, but at the same time this congressman is literally saying like, I'm going to work towards breaking up your company because we think you're a monopoly. And it stood that way until the very end. The guy hit the gavel and we're still staring at Jeff Bezos like smiling awkwardly. It was just super weird. It just felt it made me feel uncomfortable.
See, I don't think, for a company like Amazon, I don't think antitrust laws are going to be very useful in terms of that. What's your take on it?
I definitely think they're committing like antitrust shit. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
You think that they're violating it?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're de facto the marketplace online. Like, yeah, you can sell in other places too, but like they have such a giant share of the market that it doesn't. If you're a vendor, it doesn't make sense not to, sell on Amazon. Like you're just not going to make any money. And this is especially true during COVID-19, right? And like the logistic chains that they set up, are nuts, right? Where it literally doesn't make sense to go on any other platform. Like you on eBay as an example, right? You can sell on eBay, right? But eBay doesn't have Prime shipping as an example, right? I can't send my products to eBay's warehouses for them to hold and for them to work out the logistics of sending it to my customers when they buy it. I can't do that on eBay, but I can do that on Amazon. And that empowers a lot of small businesses. And it empowers a lot of big businesses too. But what Amazon will do is then they basically own all of your data, right? They know exactly what you're selling. They know exactly what everybody else is selling. And if they can buy the same product from China, and since they have all the money in the world, they can undercut you on your sales very easily. So you're basically just feeding a giant data engine.
Their whole business model was to essentially take everyone underwater, mm-hmm. and they had the world's biggest oxygen tank.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong, fucking love Amazon, right? Like, I think it's a ridiculous machine, right? I think it's like almost like a utopia.
I mean, the tools that Amazon gives us is just incredible. The tools that, like, the Amazon as a service has, without a doubt, increased the living standards of most people.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. I can't believe that I can like think, hey, you know what? I need this thing. Almost anything that you can think of, almost anything, and you can buy it. And in like 2 days, in some cases, the same day, in a couple hours, I can just have it in my hand right then and there. It's fucking phenomenal. They're experiments in logistics, experiments in like, like internet purchasing, like buying things online. Fucking crazy. But they are being anti-competitive, 100%. Much in the same way that all the other companies are. Apple, Google, Facebook, you name it. Totally anti-competitive.
Well, the big four will be the big four until they're not anymore, right? Because no one ever thought that MySpace was going to be overtaken.
Nope.
But Facebook came out and then MySpace was gone.
The thing is, though, that these companies, like MySpace, never got close to the level that Facebook did. Never even close.
I mean, they had millions. I mean, they had
millions, but
99% of the market share.
Right. When the market was in the low billions. We're talking about like Facebook counts their users in billions now. Facebook counts their users in like almost on like a planetary scale. You know what I mean? MySpace never had that. Not even close. You know what the difference between a million and a billion is? It's almost a billion. It's a rounding error. They never had a chance. It wasn't even close. I'm not saying that they can't be undone by something better, but like at this rate, probably not. Like there's not going to be another Apple that comes out. Like when Google came out with Android, everyone thought, oh shit, they're They're really going to unseat Apple. Apple still has a giant market share for smartphones.
Yeah, but Apple has competitors. Apple has legitimate competitors.
Here's the thing, though.
Samsung and
Here's the
Google
thing,
phones
though. They don't, because within the ecosystem, they are a monopoly. They built an ecosystem. They built a marketplace, and they compete against other people within their own marketplace. And they own both the marketplace and are a competitor inside of their own marketplace, which by definition is antitrust. So,
well, these giant tech monopolies, I don't think there's going to be any meaningful type of regulation is passed that's going to I don't think there will ever be a Teddy Roosevelt style break of these companies.
I think it's due. I mean,
you think it's due?
Yeah, dude. Because like if we ran back, Rockefeller, Vandenberg, right? They were like the top two for the last time that we broke up a bunch of fucking monopolies, right? And these folks owned everything, and nobody thought that they would ever touch them. We broke up those companies.
Standard Oil just became all the other oil companies that we know today. I mean they were distant,
but they're all independent.
They're all independent, but I mean Standard Oil became Chevron and Texaco and
right, but it's no longer just Standard Oil. Right?
Yeah, it's no longer Standard Oil.
So there could be
but during that time, Standard Oil, there were other oil companies that existed.
Yeah, like
there were a lot of independent operations.
Yeah, but they were all baby fish, little tiny baby fish that literally had no sway on the market. It's when it becomes a monopoly, it doesn't mean that you're the only, like, I think this is what a lot of people get confused about monopolies. It doesn't mean that you're the only player in the market. It means that you have such a large share of the market that you dictate how the market moves. That you set the prices, you set the standards, and when you set those standards and those prices, you do so to maximize your benefit and to crush any opposition. That is a monopoly. It's not that you're the only company. So when Standard Oil had all, like, the largest share, of oil production and sales, in the United States specifically, but also across the world, they had the ability to increase or decrease production unilaterally, and that made huge, like, indentations on the price of oil globally. Right? That's why earlier this year when fucking Russia and Saudi Arabia were getting into that oil war, right? Saudi Arabia is legitimately one of the largest producer of oil in the world. So if they decide one day that they just want to increase production, by a lot because they can, that reduces the price of oil. And if they decide one day that they just want to stop producing things, then that will increase the price of oil. The same thing is with Amazon. Amazon has such a strong market share in, like, online sales of everything that if they want to tweak the fucking numbers in their direction, if they want to look at how are batteries being sold and figure out a way to only display their batteries and sell them at prices that no small business can ever compete with, that's anti-competitive. That's a monopoly, and it's wrong. Yeah,
but if you look back in the 1800s, if you use Standard Oil as an example, yeah, they absolutely dominated the marketplace, but there were competitors. Like there were more. There was Unocal oil. There were other oil companies besides just Standard Oil at that time. Most of them were smaller operations, but they also had to compete with oil companies outside of the U.S.
Right. Well, we don't have any control of companies outside of the U.S. Like, that's none of our business. Quite literally.
But there was a level of competition that they had to
like domestically. But like I said, once you're at a critical mass where your dick is so heavy that you can swing it in any direction that you can swing the whole market in any direction that you want, and it's always going to swing in your direction because that's what you want. That's the problem. Right? Because that doesn't benefit the consumers, right? So if we're bringing it to the Apple argument and how they take a 30% cut of every purchase on the App Store, they hold such a strong percentage of the market of smartphone applications, as an example, that they can charge 30% to their developers, which is fucking highway robbery, right? Can you imagine any entity at all, saying they're going to take a 30% cut of what you make, your hard work? It's fucking ridiculous, you know?
That 30% cut is pretty standard when it comes to marketplaces of pretty much any source.
That's not true.
That be like,
that's not true.
30% is not standard universally, but you will see a 30% number in a lot of different programs.
You know, so the thing is that if
it is incredibly high to take that much,
right? So the thing is, like, if I'm Apple, right, and I create Apple Music, I'm a music streaming service, right? And I also have Spotify on my Apple App Store. Apple Music isn't being charged 30% of their sales because it's Apple, but Spotify is being charged 30% of their sales, right? And so Spotify is being worked at a disadvantage to Apple if they want to, if they want Apple's market share, meaning anyone who uses an Apple phone. Conveniently, Spotify is massive, and they were able to work out a better deal than 30%. But that's also kind of the fucked up point, you know? It's like, if I wanted to make a streaming service music thing myself, I still have to pay 30%. So now I can't compete with Spotify or Apple Music. The only reason why Spotify is allowed to do it is because they have millions of users, and Apple wanted them on their platform. So, they make this platform and they try to be an independent player, which they should be. And then they make their own apps to compete against the people that are on their market. And then they make the rules such that it's hard for competitors to compete on their marketplace. And then if you want to compete, you have to pay them. So it's like, it's crazy.
So let's transition over to did you hear about the withdrawal from Germany?
What, we're withdrawing troops from Germany?
Yes.
Yeah, I only saw a meme about that. It was like,
that's the most efficient way to
describe
absorb it, to get the news. A meme.
Yeah, totally. The meme was like, oh, it's a German.
Oh, Russia.
No, the meme was like from the perspective of a German saying, "Oh, President Trump, we love that we think you're doing it 100% right. We wish you were the president of, Germany." Basically, like, egging him on, like trying to say, like, yes, please pull out all of the troops from Germany.
So, they're pulling out 12,000 troops from Germany, and Trump has been saying this for a very long time. So it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is that they're splitting up the troops. So they're going to put about 6,000. They're going to bring 6,000 soldiers home, and then the other ones are going to be allocated to different countries within Europe. Poland being one of the big recipients of the additional soldiers.
Well, because Poland is actually paying their NATO bills.
Yeah, and Trump is saying, Trump is saying that Germany is not paying their fair share. They're not paying their 2%.
They're not paying their protection money.
And I don't think they owe the U.S. billions over that. That's what Trump is claiming, that is claiming that Germany owes the U.S. billions in those fees. Because Germany.
Oh, that's just like a wrong way to think of it. It doesn't owe the U.S. any money. It owes NATO the money. Right, and that's where I think Trump gets it wrong. We're paying NATO our fair share. Poland's paying their fair share, their 2%. And Germany's not paying 2% to NATO, but Germany doesn't owe the United States anything. Germany owes NATO.
Well, the way the media is spinning this is that the big CNN headline was that it will cost billions and take years. So the U.S. to withdrawal, U.S. withdrawal from Germany will take will cost billions and take years. That's the exact headline. And yeah, logistically, it's going to
cost money
to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why it would take years to do that.
No, it's not like an active war zone. They don't need to
they
don't need to like shore up their defenses. You know,
I don't see. But I mean, if Trump loses the election, there's a pretty real chance that will happen. I don't think that Biden will. I don't think that will go through in the new Biden administration, especially since there will most likely be much more hawkish on Russia than Trump is. And it's like the whole pretext is like, I guess the criticism comes from like, how could you do this? Like, with Russia breathing down Europe's neck, how can you allocate troops out of Germany? Haven't the Berlin Wall? Don't you know what that was for? It divided the Western country, the Soviet Union. It's all the neoconservatives throwing these talking points up. Like they have to pay homage to
like
the
Cold neoliberals
War.
Or whatever.
It's like, there was a time when Germany was split in two. There was East and West Germany. We
have to continue our culture of, mutual defense and respect against the red threat.
I mean, moving troops from Germany, even if you were gonna have that mentality on Russia, like they're this ultra aggressive nation, there is no way that the Red Army is going to march its way over. Russian Empire is going to march its way to Germany. If you were going to allocate troops and you'd want to allocate them to countries east of Germany, I don't know. I am no tactician, but
Poland is, if we're really thinking about Poland is to the east. So
it's to the east of Germany, right?
So if you ask me, Trump is doing...
You have to march through Poland to get to Germany.
That's right.
That's what the Soviet Union did.
Right.
They marched through Poland, and then they went through Germany.
So really, Trump is doing a better job at defending against Russia by putting the troops from Germany to Poland. Take that, liberals.
Take that, resistance. I don't know. It's just kind of a dumb story. I don't think that... I mean... This was something that shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. Trump has been saying this for a long time, and he announced this multiple times that he was going to do this. Now, of course, in like the age that we live in, everything is just like Trump's evil plan. Trump and Putin are have a vacation house together, and they're giving each other back massages. So it's just interesting to see the reaction from the media along with the hashtag resistance folks.
Well, I think that story will probably get swept under the rug very, very quickly because today's big story is even crazier, and that was that Trump was on his Twitter storm again and suggesting that we should delay the presidential elections in November. You hear about that one?
Yeah, I agree with him. I think that Trump should just be president until... I think he should be like kind of like a Ba'athist ruler where he has like
a Hashemite king,
a 30-year reign, and then he decides when the time is right, and he passes on his presidency to Donald Trump Jr.
He's not going to last another 30 years. Let's be real.
All right, 10 years.
He'd be lucky for that too.
Trump only gets stronger with age. The coronavirus, he has coronavirus, and it made him stronger. He absorbed it.
Well, the only reason why he's like, if he has coronavirus, the reason why he's staying alive is because he's like the vampire pedophiles files are out there, like sucking the blood of the youth, and replacing it for him. Anyway,
he's drinking bleach. That's the cure, right?
He's shoving UV flashlights up his ass. That's how you get rid of it. So he said on Thursday that today, literally, that the November election should be delayed until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. So what he's talking about is this largely bullshit argument that mail-in voting, which is what we're gearing up to do because of coronavirus, that mail-in voting causes fraud. And there's no receipts of this. He says that there's receipts, but there's I've found literally none. No receipts of this. And what I find it very, okay, so CR, you're pointing out exactly what I wanted to get to here too. So the point is that what's ironic about this is that he is using absentee ballot. He is an absentee voter, right? I'm an absentee voter. Like I've voted absentee before. What that means is that you're not available in, your polling place on that time. And, you can have a couple reasons. You could be sick, you could be out of, the country, on other work reasons, or honestly, some states just allow you to do absentee voting because it just makes things easier for the state, right? Because a lot of polling places get very, very packed and they don't want people waiting in line. So it's just easier for you to just go pick up your mailing ballot, you apply for one, they send it to you, and you fill it out and you send it back. So Donald Trump in one tweet is saying, on the one hand, that voting by mail is bad because you can get fraud. He was later on the TV, responding to questions about this today, and he was saying that, you see thousands of ballots being thrown away and or they're being opened and changed and stuff like that, which is just so far from the truth and in and of itself its own felony violation. But absentee voting is literally mail-in voting. It's exactly the same. All absentee voting is mail-in voting. So he's saying that mail-in voting is bad, but absentee voting is good. But it's the same thing. It's literally the same thing.
Well, yeah, it is the same thing. I think there is a point, though. If you have large-scale mail-in ballots, there is definitely a higher percentage of fraud with voting.
There's literally no evidence.
There have been a lot of cases.
Not for mail-in ballots. No, there isn't. There literally isn't. Here, so I actually looked this up. So one state in particular, Washington, you have to register, right? And you don't get a ballot unless you're a registered voter in the state. You have to get it through the mail, obviously. And each of these ballots have a barcode on it where you can actually track the status of each of it's like a tracking ID on Amazon. It's fucking simple. You can see exactly where it's gone, which mail processing facilities it's been through, where is it going. They also check all of the signatures, right? They have when you register to vote, you have to sign your name, and the people who open up the ballots are trained to look at these signatures and see, do these signatures match up? If they don't, then they put your ballot to the side and then they respond to you later, right? And specifically in Washington, they have cameras on all of these ballot people, and you can actually tune in to these cameras. They're online. You can watch them. You can watch them doing it, and people from both parties are watching these.
Is it like things. New Jack City, where everything is filmed and you have to be naked to touch the crack? You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. You ever seen New Jack City?
No, I didn't see that.
No. Oh, okay. I'm making a blank reference then.
Okay. But the point is that there's cameras, right, that are watching, and there's a vested interest from both major political parties to watch the process, to make sure that the process is being done correctly, right? And in terms of cases of fraud, after the 2016 election, that same system in Washington flagged 74 questionable votes, and then 59 of those who may have voted in multiple states, and 14 people who might have been dead or were dead. And those ballots were sent to the county election managers and prosecutors for scrutiny. And in the cases where it was fraud, those people were charged. So we're talking about, they're saying that massive fraud occurs. We're talking about 74 questionable votes in an entire state's election in 2016. 74. So like probably 0.00001% fraud or potential fraud, because keep in mind, they still have to investigate it.
So maybe I'm just ignorant, But when I think of the major red flag, and maybe I'm just completely wrong about this, and you can correct me, but I think of the 2000 presidential election when Bush
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good point.
won under questionable terms.
Right.
Weren't those ballots that they kept on counting over and over and over again paper ballots, mail-in ballots? Am I
There were
Am I
paper
wrong
ballots.
about
There were
that?
mail-in ballots.
They
There were
weren't
paper
mail-in
ballots.
ballots.
They were paper ballots.
They were the ones with the hole punch, right?
Correct. And like the big issue with those were that the machines that were used for you to punch the hole through were calibrated and were like off center, right? Where if you were punching the hole and it looked like you were picking one candidate, it was actually off to the right or off to the left too far, and they weren't certain who you actually voted for. And for the ones that they weren't certain, they had to throw those ballots out, right?
No.
And that was based on a flawed system. I'm going to tell you what the real reason why Trump doesn't want mail-in ballots, and this is the absolute truth because he said it himself on TV. The real reason is because he wants to have a party or he wants to go home on election night. That's what he wants. And mail-in ballots can take months. To your point, the 2000 election took them basically until like December to figure that shit out. And he wants an immediate fucking answer right now.
Well, I have news for you. I think whatever party wins it's going to take at the very least weeks to come up with a winner, because I think both parties are going to accuse each other of fraud.
Well, yeah, but the problem now is that we have a guy with the bully pulpit saying that it's going to be a fraud, and we haven't even casted a single fucking vote for it yet. He's already saying it's going to be a fraud. And that might amount to voter manipulation. Because we're talking about the president of the United States here saying that if you vote via mail-in ballot, it won't count or it'll be fraud, so don't vote. And really, this is only going to hurt himself because the only people that are going to take him seriously are his base.
Isn't the job of a politician to manipulate people into voting for them?
No, to voting for them, but not manipulating them into voting or not voting. There's a difference.
So you're saying he's trying
There's
to
a difference, right? So like you can't
to vote or to vote.
You can't manipulate people to vote or not vote, right? Like you can't tell people, "Hey, polling place is closed," when actually it's open. That's illegal. That's voter manipulation, right? But if he's telling you, the president of the United States is telling you, if you vote via mail-in ballot, it's not going to count, it's not real, it's fraud. That amounts to trying to manipulate people into not voting.
I think that's a stretch.
No, it's not. There's fucking legal scholars right now that are like digging into this shit. It amounts to voter suppression. That is voter suppression. We're talking about a person who has clout that is telling you that if you vote, your vote doesn't count. That dissuades people from voting.
The people who are listening to him are his own base.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
So
It's just fucking stupid. It's only going to hurt him. But it doesn't matter if it's only hurting him. It's still voter suppression.
The people who are going to vote against them, who are going to be voting for Joe Biden, are
not going to listen
to anything that he says, right. And they're like, "Oh, I hate Trump. What does CNN say?"
Exactly.
And CNN's going to say,
but that's not the point, though.
Of Trump.
But that's not the point, though. Whether or not he's doing something that's going to help or hurt him, which this definitely will hurt him, because the only people that are going to listen to this bullshit is his supporters, right? So it's only going to hurt him among his own base. But the point is that it doesn't matter that I don't care that his voters aren't going to vote because they think it's fraud. I certainly do not care, but it's still against the law. It's still not right. No person should be able to, try to disenfranchise voting through deception or misleading information.
I think he's just being a jackass. I think
the point. I honestly think he's going to fight this.
Like attempt for him to fraud people. I think he's just being a jackass and talking out of his ass.
Well, it's not just him, man. It's honestly not just him. I wish it was just him talking about it out of his ass, because fucking fat man, Mike Pompeo, right, was on the telly also responding to these questions, and they asked him straight up, is like, do you think the president has the power to move the election date? And he says, I can't make a judgment on that. The DOJ would have to, like, Bill Barr and the DOJ will have to make a decision on that.
Well, yeah, obviously he cannot fucking move the election date.
Right, well, he can, but this is the constitutional point. Like, he cannot do that. The Constitution grants those powers specifically to Congress and the states, right? He cannot do that. But Mike Pompeo is saying Bill Barr is going to make that determination. So it's not just Trump talking out of his ass. This is something that is being discussed in his administration actively, and he's just the dumbass that like spilled the beans because he's pissed off. Also interesting, today the numbers for the last quarter economy came out. So this is another one of his like little distractions of the day. Like, let me say something fucking stupid.
He's playing 3D chess. Are you saying 4D chess?
No, I think he's playing like 1D checkers.
What, 1D checkers? He's just distracting.
He's playing 1D checkers because he's trying to distract the media against the economy numbers with something that is potentially like dangerous for him, potentially illegal.
Maybe.
Let's impeach him again. Let's do it.
You want to impeach him again?
Why not? It might be kind of fun. Like, let's have fun with it. Obviously, it means nothing. Like, let's just do it again. It might be fun.
What's the impeachment offense?
Voter suppression.
Voter suppression?
Yeah, voter suppression.
I mean, that's probably more
based than
more viable than the last thing they impeached him for.
Let's just do it. Let's just do it for fun. See what happens.
Impeach him for putting gum on a bench or something like that underneath a table.
Not wearing a mask.
Not wearing a mask.
Okay, last topic, and I think this is a good one to end on. There's a bunch of like prominent anti-mask folks that are dying from the coronavirus. And like, I don't want to make too much of a joke about it because I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but it is very ironic. So the first one that I want to talk about is the co-founder. Have you ever heard of Turning Point USA?
Charlie Cuck?
Kirk, not Cuck.
Charlie Cuck?
That is not the guy who died. His co-founder, Bill Montgomery, died. You might not know him because he was the older, richer dude that helped, basically turn on Turning Point USA.
Who found old Potato Head?
Yep. So he was 80 years old. So Montgomery basically started it with Charlie Kirk back in 2012. Charlie Kirk at the time was like this 18-year-old, conservative upstart that, had a whole lot on his mind. And, Montgomery had the goodness of his heart, and like also because he was a conservative and thought it was a good idea, decided to fund him and like start this, movement. I'll call it a movement.
Basically, Turning Point USA is a really lame collection of college conservatives who I guess are fearless enough to
what
be
makes
super
this,
lame.
What makes this super ironic is that, and this isn't like...
We're a turning point.
So over the course of the pandemic, basically their reps have downplayed the impact of like coronavirus on public life. And like in two previous episodes of their podcast, this is on like in March and April, Kirk had said that elderly people and people with pre-existing conditions should self-quarantine, right? So he's like doing that, but he's saying outside of that, he questioned basically the validity of the community spread for like people who aren't in those high risk segments. And then he was said on one of his podcasts, he was like, "Don't force me to wear a mask. It's that simple. I'm not going to do it. I'm not." And ultimately,
this
it's like
guy was in his 80s when he died.
Yeah. I'm not saying he wasn't old and that he wasn't at risk. What I'm saying is ironic is that his fucking partner, who is an anti-masker, and they're basically downplaying the effects of the coronavirus and how it's spread. It's a little bit ironic that his co-founder dies. of coronavirus. A little bit.
I mean, it's not crazy that an 80-year-old died with coronavirus. Let me rephrase that.
All right, how about another one? So just today, Herman Cain died. You remember Herman Cain?
Herman Cain, yes. I do remember Herman Cain. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
So he was actually my favorite.
Ran for president. Yeah,
he was my favorite in that season of politics, because I like thinking of those debates as like a reality TV show. He was the guy with the 999 tax deal, right? He wanted to do a flat tax of 999, like 9% across the board for everything. And he was like the CEO or whatever of Godfather's Pizza. He was like He was a pizza guy. Interesting dude. Hated his politics. I'm not I'm upset that he's dead, and I lament for his family and shit. But definitely not my politician. Here's the irony here. In June, Trump decided to hold that rally in Tulsa, right? And this was basically everyone, lots of scientists, lots of liberals, frankly, objected to it because, this is like, we're having a fucking pandemic. Like, why would you want to host a giant rally indoors with no good means of social distancing? Like, that's kind of stupid. And a lot of people weren't wearing masks, and thankfully, not a lot of people showed up to that one. Like, their turnout sucked, thanks to TikTok. But still, like, thousands of people still did go, even though they didn't pack out the entire stadium like they thought they would. And a lot of people were there. A lot of people were wearing masks. Some people on Trump's team had been diagnosed with coronavirus just before the event. And Herman Cain was seen at the event without a mask. He spoke, I believe he spoke at it, if I'm not mistaken. 11 days later, he's hospitalized with coronavirus. Now, we can't.
Well, Herman Cain had cancer. He had stage 4.
Having cancer doesn't make you magically have coronavirus. I'm not saying. I'm going to be very clear about.
I'm saying that he had stage 4 cancer. I remember this back in years ago. People were like, "Oh, he's going to die," but the cancer ended up going back in remission.
Oh, he was at super huge risk. 100%.
I don't understand why he would go anywhere. Like, why would he?
Yep.
Why he wouldn't quarantine himself?
Yep. Well,
if he was at such a high risk. I mean, I don't think a mask.
This is the irony.
Mask saved him. It's not. I mean.
No, this is the irony. This is the irony.
It's the risk that he ended up.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally the irony of it is that people like Herman Cain and like Bill Montgomery were downplaying this pandemic. And yes, they were at the highest risk, the two of them, being old and infirmed. And specifically for Herman Cain, the fucking balls on this guy to attend a indoor rally in Tulsa without a mask on was just, are you stupid? Like, I'm not blaming him, and I'm also not saying that he definitely caught it at Tulsa, because there's no way to really know that. But just the fact that he was willing to go to a major indoor gathering without a mask on tells me that he wasn't taking social distancing and wearing a mask and shit. Like, he wasn't doing that in his life. And his family and people that are close to him were saying that he did a lot of traveling. Like, a lot of them are trying to say that, he didn't. It's not confirmed that he got it from that Tulsa rally. Like, he could have got it from anywhere because he was doing all this traveling. It's like, dude, why were you traveling? And I think what's kind of destructive about this is that, a lot of people, unfortunately on the right side, are really downplaying, the danger that is evident. I mean, right now as we speak, we're over 150,000 deaths,
Well, I think people are tired of sitting and being locked in their fucking house like animals and locked and having the economy destroyed.
Well,
so
you run the risk of dying.
I understand the reaction of people being like, fuck this shit, I'm done, I want to live my life.
Yeah, well, then you run the risk of dying.
There's an inherent risk that I'm willing to take, and unfortunately Herman Cain died, which is sad.
Yeah.
But People don't want to fucking live in their goddamn cage for the rest of their
And
lives.
the thing is that, maybe Herman Cain got it because he went to the Tulsa rally without a mask. Maybe he did that to himself.
Maybe he
But
did it
maybe
himself,
he didn't.
caught it there.
Maybe someone
The guy
around
had
him, some
a high
young person,
risk.
maybe some young person around him, one of his family members or one of his co-workers or his underlings, I don't know, whoever hangs out with Herman Cain on the regular, who is young and wasn't wearing a mask and going out and doing their thing because they were sick of sitting around and doing nothing. They infected Herman Cain, and now Herman Cain is dead because somebody decided not to social distance.
I mean, Herman Cain is dead because he was a high risk guy, and he
was a high risk guy who put himself in a high risk situation.
He put himself in a high risk situation.
Right.
That's why he's dead. It wasn't because someone else decided not to socially distance.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know any of this.
The responsibility is ultimately on the person with the high risk medical condition.
Right.
It's not the responsibility of somebody
100%. I agree
he
with you.
interacts with.
100%. I agree with you.
If I have COVID-19 and somebody comes in with a high risk and I don't know it, and somebody who has, let's just say, really bad asthma and has, lupus and is over 55 years old,
right,
and I give him COVID-19 and he dies, that's not my responsibility for not social distancing. It's that person's responsibility for not
protecting themselves.
For not protecting themselves. I mean, there are precautions that you could take,
such as wearing a mask or staying at home or staying 6 feet
mainly
away from each other.
just
washing your hands. There's plenty of things that you could do.
Staying 6 feet away, staying home, all that stuff.
Right. None of them is a smoking gun, but there's plenty of things that you could do, and Herman Cain did none of them, right? And, unfortunately, Herman Cain is now dead, right? And we don't know exactly how he caught the coronavirus, but it's ironic because he was at the highest risk, and he put himself in probably the most high-risk situation that you could put yourself in for this. And he contracted the virus in exactly the amount of in approximately the amount of time that it usually takes to incubate, which is 12 to 14 days, right? And he unfortunately passed from it. And what I'm trying to say is that there have been plenty of people who have been in super high risk situations, like elderly, infirmed, etc., who did everything they could to social distance and mask up and stay away from everyone else. And they still caught it and they still died. So for those people, and there's thousands of those people, thousands of those people, for all those people who thought that they were trying their best to stay socially distant, is it on them still? Is it still their responsibility? Because they have to have caught it from somehow. This is a pandemic wise. This is a collective. The responsibility isn't on the individual. It's on the collective. It's on everybody to do what we can do to make sure that we don't fucking ruin it. And countries like Germany and Japan, who initially were doing great, they're starting to spike again. But the levels that they have are not even close to what we have. We've not yet dealt with the first wave.
I disagree with that. I think the responsibility is for the individual, not the collective. I think if you, but you have, you do understand this because we've been talking about this the entire episode. We are probably going to go through irreversible economic damage in this country because of the precautions and the response to this virus that the government has taken. This could, I mean, there's no studies on this right now, cause
more deaths
right and more suffering in terms of just lack of financial stability to afford quality health care and things such as suicide that could cause more fatalities in the future.
We're in a global pandemic and we're handling it the worst. We're doing the best we can, I think, but we're not at all doing actually, I take that back. We're not doing the best we can. We can do much better. And honestly,
I don't know how we could do much better. What are we supposed to do?
Well, because we didn't take it fucking seriously in the first place. There was such fucking this is what pisses me off because for there's not a ton of research on this, and like honestly, you're going to see a lot of it come out, but because we're in the situation right now, we're in the research project right now. The point though is that the virus, thank you, CR, we politicized it, right? And I mean that on both sides, right? On the one side, we politicize it as the worst fucking boogeyman ever, and on the other side, we politicize it as just the fucking flu, right? When the reality of it sat somewhere in the middle, right? It is a very fucking nasty flu, but also if we don't do something about it collectively, it's going to be a fucking nightmare, right? And very early on, if everyone would have just shut the fuck up about it and stayed home for 2 weeks, we probably would have kicked this shit's ass quickly. But because there were so many people in so many states that literally rejected the whole premise that this virus was real, let alone dangerous, it spread like crazy. And then in all of the states where it's like spiking right now is the states that decided to reopen too quickly. Florida, Texas, Arizona, all these places were like anti-maskers, largely their governments were run by anti-maskers, and they were like, let's get the fucking economy running right quick right now. And we saw what happens when they did that. Now places like Arizona have more cases in a single day than New York did ever during the height of it. Right? So like you can't tell me that there's not a correlation between like taking it seriously and staying home for just a bit and closing it down and taking that fucking financial hit for a bit. But we just need to do it now, and we all need to agree to do it now, because if we do it half-assed and haphazardly, some people here, some people there, fucking people move around all the time. People were going from New York to Florida, They were taking it from New York to Florida, where nobody gave a shit, and then it blew up in Florida. Like, of course. But if Florida was taking it as seriously as New York was, when it was bad in New York and not bad in Florida, then maybe they wouldn't have blown up as bad.
Well, in hindsight, saying everyone should take off for 2 weeks to prevent the spread of the virus.
In hindsight, it sounds easy, right? Like in the moment, it's like a hard fucking decision to make. But like
in the moment, it's almost impossible to make that call.
Yeah,
because
in the moment, but like we've had many moments.
You have to understand.
We've had many moments.
We've had so many fake fucking media scares with pandemics when everything between
I hear you,
SARS
Henry, but we've been doing this
flu.
We've been doing this for 4 months. More than 4 months. How long has it been?
But I'm saying at the very beginning of the pandemic, there was so much fear porn regarding pandemics in previous years that people fucking grew tired of hearing about it.
They thought it was bullshit. Right. They thought it was fake news. I get it.
And I don't
hear
blame
you.
a single person for thinking it was bullshit.
I hear you. I don't blame them for initially thinking it was bullshit, but like all you had to do is look at the death count.
Bullshit.
All you had to do is look at the fucking death count, right? And then once it started getting better, the moment we got this inkling that it was getting better, everybody's like, all right, fuck it, we're done. Like, turn it off, turn it back on. Like this never happened. We had several moments throughout the entire coronavirus. We had several moments for us to all be like, yeah, shit, this is bad. Let's take it seriously for a minute. We had several moments to unify as a collective and be like, we need to flatten the curve. But we didn't. And that's why it's taking so damn long. And that's why it's hurting so much.
Well, it's hard for people in other parts of the country to be like, okay, let's unify as a collective with New York, a place with completely different population densities, and that's far away and doesn't have the same congestion and density of that population. It's hard for someone to be like, okay, let's collectively work from home and not leave our places and just put ourselves in quarantine.
Wear a mask when we're outside. It's like,
I don't even know. Listen, I know there's debate back and forth, and I wear a mask mainly because I'm told to wear a mask. Is there legitimate studies that show that the mask is key in preventing this disease spread, or is it just like another precaution? But like the bullshit scarves that most people are wearing outside, they're not wearing.
So let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. Let's say if I told you, from now on, every time you go outside, you have a 10% risk of getting shot. You have a 10% risk of getting shot now from now on. All right, and here is a bulletproof vest, right? It is rated for 9mm bullets. You might get shot by an AK-47, and maybe this does nothing to you, right? But here's a bulletproof vest that's rated for small caliber handguns. You could wear it, and we're going to ask you to wear it every time you go into a store. Yeah, it's heavy, it's annoying, it's hot outside. We don't like to wear it, but like, if you do get shot by a small caliber weapon, it's probably going to save your life. It's going to hurt like shit, but you're probably not going to die. We have people out here that are saying, fuck you, it's my choice. I'm not going to wear a fucking bulletproof vest. I'm just going to go out. I'll take the 10% chance that I get shot. Like, wouldn't you want to wear the bulletproof vest? Even if you're not 100% guaranteed to, like, not die. Wouldn't you want to take that precaution?
I think the bulletproof vest and mask correlation doesn't really stick, because one is preventing you from a bullet piercing your skin, and the other is a face mask that may or may not protect you. And here, look, listen, I wear a mask and I think that it's valuable. I'm not denying.
The point, though, to answer your question directly, though,
a lot of
there are studies that say that it does lessen the spread. There are studies.
But a lot of people who wear masks, they wear them, they touch the mask over and over.
They fuck it up. But you know what? I would rather
fuck it up, and it's like, if you're touching a surface and you're touching the mask, then why even wear a mask in the first place?
Because I would prefer, because you're going to touch things and your face and everything else anyway. I would rather that you try to wear a mask and try to prevent it, even if it's just virtue signaling from some people. And maybe we get 50% effectiveness out of you because you're a dummy, right? But 50% effectiveness is way better than 0% effectiveness. What I'm trying to say with the bulletproof vest thing, maybe I just got too, deep on it, is if you have a chance to reduce your risk, that is honestly not that big a deal. I would wear a mask at any point over wearing a bulletproof vest, because bulletproof vests are fucking heavy and annoying, right? Like, that is cumbersome. But wearing a mask, like these little shitty paper masks, or like your fucking bandana, your Bloods and Crips gear, like, it's not that big a deal. It really isn't. Like, you just do it. Another way to look at it would be like, I saw this meme and it was like this, MAGA hat guy saying, I'm not wearing a mask. It's my body. It's my choice. And if you don't like it, if that makes you scared, then stay home. Well, the same argument could be made of someone saying, I am going to drink beers while driving, and it's my body. It's my choice. And if you don't like it, you can, if that makes you scared, you can stay home. Some people can actually drive like somewhat tipsy. Maybe the likelihood is that you don't hurt anyone in most cases. But it's enough of a risk, and if you drink, especially if you drink enough, it's enough of a risk that you would pose for a lot of other people just by doing so. So just fucking wear the mask and don't drink while you're driving. Just do it. It's not that big a deal.
I think comparing drinking and driving and mask wearing is a bit of a false equivalence.
Okay, that's fair, Henry. But you know what? I'm making these analogies to try and prove a point, right? And the point is that it's not that big a fucking deal. Like, just do it,
I understand the point you're trying to make, and I get it that it'd be a lot easier to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It would make everyone's life a lot easier if everyone just followed the guidelines that were put out to the precautionary guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
but it's fucking impossible to enforce that without being a goddamn tyrannical government.
I mean, you don't have to be a tyrannical government to do it. You can just, like, businesses, as an example. You can't go into Costco without a mask, period. Like, very easy. We can make a free market approach to this. If we get every business to just be like,
But every business is doing that.
Right.
Essentially, there's not a single business that I've walked into.
We also live in New York, too, where where the culture here is like, we want to wear masks. If you go elsewhere in the country, there are places in this country that it's almost like there was no pandemic ever. And they don't have a culture of wearing masks. They just don't. And for a lot of those places, they start seeing a rise in, like Texas and Arizona and Florida, where they didn't have that culture. They got those pops. Hate to say I told you so, but, like, fuck.
Well, you know what? What about? Listen, I don't want to open up a new can of worms right here, but I don't know. I think something to do with the mass protest movement that we had.
Yeah, and that was a bad fucking idea too for the coronavirus. And we're gonna get a
spread of COVID-19.
Yeah, dude, we're gonna see a giant pop coming out of that because people decided to go outside. Like, again, the reasons behind it I might agree with, but, like, because of the pandemic, I don't think it was a good idea, because now it's going to further the spread, right?
And then you have doctors completely discrediting themselves because they're saying things like it is, COVID-19 basically is the real pandemic is racism. It's not COVID-19.
Well, I think that's more of a that's a political going out. That's a political statement, not a medical statement. I wouldn't take that.
I mean, a lot of doctors have been making political statements rather than medical statements.
But you know what? They're humans,
and that's what's leading to people being like, "Fuck this."
They are definitely humans, and they're entitled to those opinions.
Don't you think that the culture shifted once we saw mass protest movement?
Sorry, do you think the culture shifted away from wearing masks and away from the pandemic?
Yeah, because people were like, "Okay, fuck this."
I think temporarily, yeah.
Obviously, this wasn't a big deal to begin with. So
no, it wasn't. No.
Life.
I'll stop you there. I don't ever think. I can't speak for all liberals, but I can speak for myself, and I would say that myself personally, when the riots started happening, I never thought, oh yeah, it's cool. We'll put coronavirus on the back burner. We're gonna go ahead and go protest. What I thought was, this is a really shitty situation. Either we sit at home because like we should, because there's a pandemic, or we take this opportunity to do something about racial inequality in this country. And a lot of people chose. I didn't choose. Like, I chose to stay at home, but a lot of people chose to go out in the streets and do that. Much like people are choosing to not wear a mask and, not follow social distancing in this country. They made that choice. And everybody's entitled to that choice, but, like, I just disagree, and I think it's dangerous. It didn't make the coronavirus go away, and it didn't invalidate the impact the coronavirus has. We now see spikes. I said so on the show. The likelihood is that we're going to see spikes after the riots, and that's an unfortunate consequence. And after the Tulsa rally, we saw spikes in Tulsa. And, potentially Herman Cain died because of that. Potentially. There are consequences to these actions, much like there are consequences, like economic consequences, to the idea of forcibly shutting down all these businesses. There is literally causal effects for all of these things. What we're trying to do is figure out what are the best moves that we can make. And this isn't new anymore, right? We have evidence for and against a lot of things. We have evidence that shows that coronavirus isn't just the flu. We have evidence to show that it does kill a lot of people and has killed a lot of people and will continue to kill a lot of people unless we do something about it. We have evidence that it's global. It's a pandemic. It's everywhere. It affects everyone. It doesn't give a shit about what your politics are or what season it is. It's gonna kill you if you are at risk, and sometimes even if you're not an at-risk demographic. And we've seen that ignoring the guidelines that are put out of social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing, all this other stuff causes pops, causes spikes. evidence is in front of us. We have plenty of data everywhere. Like, in my opinion, it is clear what we need to do, and it doesn't sound like a great idea at first, but like this isn't new anymore. We know now what is happening. I think we need to dump money into people's pockets so that the economy doesn't break, so that they can continue spending while they're not working. Everyone needs to stay the fuck home, wash their hands and social distance. And we need to ramp a lot of money into vaccinations. And I mean, there's no cure, but like a vaccination or treatments. We need to do all of these things at the same time. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to piss a lot of people off. But it's going to reduce the amount of people who die. And I think that is more valuable to me. Like, human lives are more valuable to me than economic profits.
Well, we have a clear disconnect, because I am not for any of those things, and for rushing a vaccine. I don't know. We can debate for another hour on this episode, or we could put a pen in it.
Yeah, let's put a pen in it.
We're over 2 hours
and 15 minutes.
Yeah. We definitely we ran a bit of a marathon for not having many things to talk about today.
Hey, all the big boys in podcasts talk for hours, so I think we're doing fine.
Yeah, why not? But yeah, I mean, we disagree on stuff, but obviously, we're still buds. We like agree and disagree like 50%. I don't know. I think we
agree more than 50%. I think we agree more than 50%.
We agree probably like
sure.
70%.
Yeah.
But then we like find something.
There's this 30% that we can't get over.
There's a 30% that we can't get over. But thanks, guys, for listening to another episode of Bro History. If you enjoy the show, make sure that you make sure that you rate and review the podcast. It's the number one way to help us continue to grow. And if you're on our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe or like the video. And we will see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.